Sure. This is a training that's going to be focused on standard 6 of the elements of effective practice for mentoring. My name is Kiana Bermudez. I'll be your main facilitator today. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So just a little bit about Mentor Maryland, DC. We are a local nonprofit, but of a part of a larger organization. So we have a national organization called Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership. We are the local affiliate of that, and we are a nonpartisan organization that serves as community-based experts across mentoring specifically. Our goal is to increase the quality and quantity of mentoring relationships for young people, and we do that through training such as this, research, public awareness, different types of events we do. So a lot of community of practice events. I think I've seen a few of you at. So that's a bit about what we do and how we do it. And some of our offerings. So we do have many resources we'd love to share. We will be sharing these slides as a PDF. So you'll have all of these as clickable links, but a few I wanted to highlight is we do have our no cost consultation and technical assistance through the National Mentoring Resource Center. That is where any program can apply and can be partnered with Mentor Maryland DC. We have a crew of consultants that are experts in all sorts of different pieces of mentoring and different fields within youth development. And we make sure we partner them alongside you at no cost. And that is a great way to, let's say, beef up your recruitment plan or your logic models, or just get some support with creating trainings or whatever that might look like. So that's a great resource. We also have our local trainings, as well as our roundtables and such. You can check out our events list online. But a great way to stay plugged in is also, we'll be sharing at the end our newsletter, which a lot of that we'll share here. But this is, again, all of these will be clickable links that you'll have access to towards the end. So as we're together in a virtual space, I'm sure y'all are pros at this, especially after COVID and such. But as just a quick reminder, we're going to be all staying muted unless we are sharing something. Please engage with me, use the chat box for any comments, questions, aha moments, any additional resources that come up to you. You can also use the raise the hand feature if there's something you'd like to share aloud. And we'll have a session evaluation at the end of the session. So please complete that. We would love your feedback. But any questions you have, feel free to share either in the chat, or you can also at the end, I'll hang around for any questions that y'all might have. Sound good? Awesome. Thanks, y'all. All righty. So in all of our spaces, we'd like to have a baseline of just some community standards that we can all agree upon. So the goal of Mentor Maryland DC in this training and in this gathering, but overall, is to create community wherever we can. So we believe that community is the cure and the foundation for learning, being seen, being heard, and being understood. And we all know, especially as youth practitioners, that that's what young people crave from us. So we just kind of want to ground us in some community standards real quick. First is that community is open to all. We also acknowledge the deep-seated racism, sexism, homo and transphobia, misogyny, and ableism that is pervasive in our country. And we stand against these isms and actively work to this aim, especially with our young people. This means that we must acknowledge that we also approach our work differently and beautifully. Our second standard is that we share openly. So we want to make sure we're listening more openly, but being open when you're sharing might hurt. And this is just a good point in that when we're sharing today, remembering that one person's yes, thank you, that's an awesome moment, is someone else's trigger, right? So be mindful of that and be open should you receive any feedback today. Always be generous with positive assumptions, but don't be afraid to ask genuine questions. We've all heard the statement, assume positive intent or assume positive assumptions, but we do ask that you do that here, but that doesn't mean that impact isn't harmful. So we also ask if we're all feeling a certain way, or if someone's feeling a certain way, to turn to wonder. And turning to wonder might look like asking questions. So wondering why they said that or why someone feels that way. The fourth is one of my favorites. No matter what your role here today is, be a host. This space is being curated by the Mentor Maryland DC team, but it is owned by all of us as hosts, which means we all have the ability to make everyone feel great, to approach others with openness and warmth. to create a beautiful space that we can all enjoy and be a part of and engage in. And this is all of our responsibility to make this a good, comfy, fun space for us. Our fifth, we're almost there, team. We don't endeavor to create safe or comfortable spaces, but rather brave spaces where discomfort can be explored and beliefs and practices challenged. So learning and growth, we've all heard, is at the edge of our comfort zone, which means something might not feel comfortable to us, but it also doesn't mean we're in danger. So make sure we're looking for the lessons when we feel those certain emotions and reactions. Six, we want this community and experience to be supportive and educational, but also fun. So please bring your full and present and authentic self. It is welcome here. And lastly, no fixing, saving, advising, or correcting each other. This is directly taken from one of our favorite tools, which is the Touchstone for Developing Trust framework. It's somewhat self-explanatory, but if you feel the need to deliver feedback, just make sure you're asking the person permission first and make sure you're always listening first. So I know that was a lot, team, but thank you all so much for listening and in the spirit of transparency, just sharing again, if we feel if anyone is in violation of these standards, we'll have a conversation, perhaps remove you, but obviously with the opportunity to speak one-on-one with our team for a resolution. So if you have any questions about these standards during or after the session, please, there's a few folks from Mentor Maryland, DC here, myself, Renee, Anaya. I can't see all the participants, but I'm sure there are a few more of us. Please feel free to chat us and let us know if you need anything. All right. So I've been talking at y'all a lot, and I'd love to share who I am. So my name is Kiana Bermudez. I'm the Program Outreach and Support Manager for the Greater Maryland region. I've been working in youth development for about 8 years, specifically in mentoring. And I am originally from South Carolina, so I am a transplant. Do I have any other Southerners here? Feel free to let me know in the chat. But I am in Baltimore. I've been in Baltimore for about 7 years, so I claim it now. I'm an AmeriCorps alum from 2017 to 2018. I am first generation American born, first generation high school graduate, and first generation college graduate. And I share all of that to say that this is the lens I bring when I facilitate. These are the biases I bring when I facilitate. And again, my role as facilitator here is to help guide the discussion and hold the space and provide resources for you. But again, we are all hosts of this space. All right, so what are we getting into today? We're going to do a little icebreaker, check out our session outcomes, introduce the elements of effective practice for mentoring, talk about standard 6, which is closure, talk through the impact of match endings, what healthy closure looks like, how that goes into our planning and policies, and then review and reflect together. Does that sound good to everyone? Give me a thumbs up or a 1. Cool. Thank you. All right. So we're going to introduce ourselves. In the chat, please put your name, your pronouns, your program, and one type of closure ritual or celebration activity that you do in your program. Your name, pronouns, program, one type of closure or ritual celebration activity that you do in your program. That could be like a graduation, a meeting. Hey, PJ, good to see you again. Hi, Jasmine. Up to Us has a graduation celebration. See a few folks from Yo. Hello. Awesome. Robert from BioBus says graduation and certificate ceremony. But before that, there's an ice cream party. I love that. End of year party from Leslie. And you make slime. That's really fun. Promotion ceremony, graduation ceremony with awards. College acceptance night. Love that. Christmas party at the end of the year. Group photo shoot week. That's so fun, Erica. Awesome. All right. Y'all keep it coming. Sounds like people are also getting some good ideas from each other. Love to see that. So before we jump in, just a quick disclaimer. So this training, while it is full of so much relevant information, it should not be viewed as the rendering of legal advice, and programs such as yourselves are strongly encouraged to consult your legal counsel and state and local laws prior to implementing any recommendations from this training. Again, super, super relevant information, but just as a liability, wanted to share that. All right, keep letting me know who y'all are in the chat. But by the end of the session today, we're going to be able to define the importance of closure in the context of a mentoring relationship, communicate closure policies and procedures throughout the mentorship cycle, and facilitate closure activities that bring the match to a close and affirm the mentor and mentee. So this will be a bit of an interactive training. We do have a handout that we'd like to share with y'all as a PDF. Renee will be dropping that in the chat shortly, but that'll be a great resource to y'all to follow along with some items and also a takeaway for y'all. And we'll be sure to also share that in our follow-up email after the training. So today we're learning about closure, which is the 6th standard in the elements of effective practice for mentoring. If you're like, I have no clue what this is, don't worry, I got you. We're going to talk through it. So the elements of effective practice are research-informed practices that have evidence-based standards and benchmarks. So each chapter was created by a group of experts. All of it is research-based and or research-informed and evidence-based. And each of them also so it has a list of standards that a program should follow to meet the best practice for every specific standard. Today, we're focusing in on closure. They also have enhancements that will promote the relationship quality and strong outcomes. So the recommendations, it has recommendations on program management, leadership, evaluation, core principles. As I mentioned, we are focusing in on closure. So the closure benchmark specifically detail research-informed practices for facilitating match closures that affirm the contributions of both the mentor and the mentee. So mentoring programs must follow the benchmarks, which we're going to go over to meet that standard. And then, as I mentioned, we'll go over the enhancements as well. They're not required for programs to meet the standard, but they're recommended by practitioners and researchers for promoting that relationship quality. So in the handout that Renee is sharing in the chat, you can also find a list of those standards, of standard 6 benchmarks and enhancements. You can also find it in the elements of effective practice for mentoring book and resource that we'll also be sharing. But we're going to be focusing in on the 4th edition, and stay tuned because we're really excited. The 5th edition of this is coming out next year. All right, so we're going to jump right in. Standard 6 is on closure. And so some of those key components of closure and key standards and benchmarks include benchmark 6.1, which is a program has procedures. So in order to meet this standard, a program must have procedures to manage anticipated closures. A program must have procedures to manage unanticipated closures. And a program has procedures to manage a closure when one member of the match is unable or unwilling to engage in the closure process. It also includes a few other standards or a few other benchmarks, which includes the program conducting exit interviews with mentors and mentees, having a written policy and procedure for managing rematching, having documents that documenting closure procedures were followed, and having a written public statement outlining the terms for mentor-mentee contact after a match ends. So these are the standards that must be followed, or the benchmarks that must be followed to meet the standard of closure in terms of best practices. So the enhancements, which are like, if you're doing these, you're doing great, you're doing a little extra, and we love that. The 3 enhancements are that at the conclusion of the agreed upon time period of the mentoring relationship, the program is exploring the opportunity with mentors, mentee, and parents or guardians to continue the match for additional time. Hosting a final celebration or meeting or event for mentors and mentees to mark that progress. It seems like a lot of you were already doing that. And providing training and support to mentees and mentors, as well as when relevant to parents, guardians, on how to identify and connect with natural mentors in their lives. So making sure they have a transition. So that's what we're focusing in on today. That should be in your handouts. But we're going to chat now. So we are all familiar with relationships ending. So I would like for y'all to reflect. Don't write anything in yet. You could reflect on a relationship ending. This could be maybe a time you moved or when you graduated or a life transition that resulted in the closure of a close personal or professional relationship. Take 1 to 2 minutes to think about that and write your responses. I'll cue us up and then we're all going to share them at the same time in the chat. So think about a time when a relationship ended and go write a little bit about that. That resulted in the closure of a close personal or professional relationship. Take 1 to 2 minutes. We will come back and put that all in a chat together. I'll make sure to count us down. All right, I'll give us another 30 seconds to write those in, and then we will all share them together. All right, are folks ready? Any thumbs up? I got a thumbs up, thank you. Awesome, all right, and we're all gonna press send. 3, 2, oh, y'all already going. 1, go. All right, leaving jobs. A lot of job transitions, moving, having trusted adults that were able to guide you through that. That's awesome. Thank y'all for sharing and for being vulnerable. If y'all, yeah, keep it going. So as y'all are reflecting on those and reading each other's as well, how did your response to that ending make you feel? Y'all can come off mute or put in the chat. How did your response to that ending make you feel?
Personally for me, it was very bittersweet. I spoke to how I was an intern for a woman-owned business, and the CEO I had become very close with. She was my mentor. I was very young at the time, so she influenced me very much so in my professional standing. Even, just as a young woman, she influenced a lot for me. So when I left her and went and enlisted in the Army, um, or we kind of came up with a plan. It was very bittersweet because I didn't want to leave, but I felt like it was the best move for me to make. And it was like an informal closure type of thing where, we talked about it, we established what communication was going to look like. She basically, she gave me her blessing and just reiterated some of the things that she had been teaching me along the way to make sure that I understood that those things that she was teaching me were across the board, not just for, perfect position with her, that they applied across the board in life. And the things that she told me 15 years later, here I am, and they still resonate deeply in all of my experiences. So it was a very bittersweet moment.
Yeah, Danielle, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your service. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I hear you, and I hear that you thankfully had someone that was pouring into you, but that was very bittersweet, and you obviously missed them and that relationship. Abigail, I see you too. It felt like mourning a loss. Yeah. A lot of folks are agreeing with Danielle. It feels bittersweet.
Hi, everyone. My name is Juanita, and I was raised with the mantra, I'm not raising you to keep you. So because my mom and dad instilled that in us. I was, I guess, always looking for things to not necessarily end, but transition and change. And so with my last departure from my most recent job to start this nonprofit, I had to practice what I preach and get to the realization that that job was a gift and an opportunity, but it wasn't permanent. And though I'd been there 10 years, it was time for me to move on. And it was sad because there were a lot of connections that I still hope that will remain. But I also knew there was going to be some departures that was just not going to stand the test of time. So right now, I'm still in a kind of sad place. There are people that I truly miss and have not heard from. So that kind of hurts. But I also know that I need the space to grow. So I'm, in this new season in my life. And so I'm taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Juanita. Yeah, the natural grief that comes with relationships ending is very real. Thank you for sharing that mantra with us. That was new to me and really grounding. Anyone else want to share?
I'll go. Hello, my name is Travis Williams. I'm a case manager here at Yo Baltimore over on the west side. I will say here at Yo Baltimore, we're one big happy family. So, us as case managers, we have 18 to 24-year-old young adults that, we advocate for. And I had two members, a female and a male who came here, for the high school, self-paced high school diploma program that we have here. Shout out to Ms. Rawlins. And they both graduated. The first one that graduated was the female, and then the second one that graduated was the male. And when they graduated, they both, left and went on with their lives. The female, she now has 2 jobs, and she graduated from Culinary Art School as well. The male, he actually, once he graduated, he is now in Job Corps. And he's in Job Corps, through us as well. So, from time to time, they do stop by the office and, just let us know how they appreciate us. And, they're my kids. They are our kids and our nieces and our nephews and sons and daughters. So, yeah, it was bittersweet, but it put a smile on my face. The fact that they move forward from here and they are doing better and becoming strong adults, going from young adults to regular adults. Thank you.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you had a lot of pride there in them, right? So really being able to see, sounds like it was a positive, expected transition, and you were able to support them through that. And now you're really just enjoying it. It's awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences and being vulnerable with me in that way. So we're going to talk a little bit about the impact of match ending. So a lot of these things will sound familiar to you, specifically unexpected endings, as we know. Some of what y'all were sharing in the chat, some of those unexpected endings in your personal life, but specifically as we talk about mentoring and matches, unexpected endings may create feelings of abandonment or insecurity for young people, especially if they're forced to make a psychological separation without that adequate preparation, so without that planning and preparation. So some of this is to show that the qualitative research from a youth mentoring researcher, Renee Spencer, found that youth experience a wide range of emotions, especially negative emotions, from premature closure, including some of those that are listed: disappointment, sadness, confusion, and both young people and their guardians may become reticent to explore a rematch due to disappointment. So they might be unwilling to do that and really nervous and scared and confused to do that. So when relationships end early, this is often the impact on young people, what we see here. So the ones listed there, as well as what's listed for parents and guardians. Does any of this sound familiar to you, especially from the personal experiences you just shared? I see some head nods. Feel free to give me some thumbs up in the chat as well. Yeah, so this is not unique just to young people, but especially as we're thinking about mentoring relationships, something we want to be mindful of. We know that relationships ending early has a very large impact on young people. So continuing just to delve into what that impact might look like, Mentoring relationships that end prematurely might lead to negative consequences for mentees, so the young people in programs. That can include declines in indicators of youth functioning, such as self-worth and confidence, or even in their schoolwork. Grossman and Rhodes, which are other researchers, they partnered for a large study which looked at about 1,100 young people across 8 Big Brothers and Big Sisters agencies. And they explored the impact of match duration and relationship quality on youth outcomes. So how does mentoring impact youth outcomes? And results suggested that young people, this is a big one that I often find myself repeating, that young people may actually be worse off with a premature ending than with no match as youth. So young people, if a match ends prematurely, could be worse off than having never had a mentor at all. And that was shown that youth matched for less than 3 months showed decreases in self-worth and confidence in their scholastic competence. So young people who were matched for less than 3 months showed significant decreases in self-worth and feelings of competence, which is huge. Spencer, who we talked about earlier in the last slide, also found that strong mentoring relationships that were planned were less damaging and had less damaging endings, while weaker relationships predicted poor endings. So the stronger a relationship was, the less damaging that ending was, kind of what Travis, you were just talking about, like, sounds like you had a really positive relationship with the young people, and that was a really positive ending experience. Whereas a weaker mentoring relationship might predict a poorer ending that might have damaging effects, especially for vulnerable youth. So premature endings, they do happen. It's natural, but how can we as programs be proactive and intentional about helping those relationships end well? That's what we're going to explore today. All right, so we're going to jump into a little activity. We're going to talk about why matches end. So I want y'all to think about right now, under what circumstances is closure likely to occur in your program? There might be like a common way it happens, maybe some one-offs. Renee's going to drop in the chat a Jamboard for us, and you're going to see 2 little headers, anticipated endings and unanticipated endings. If you could just put some sticky notes down, we are going to chat through what that looks like. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can all do it together. All right. Perfect. Thank you, Renee, for dropping that link. Perfect. So under what circumstances does closure happen in y'all's programs? I already see folks putting some in. Job change, young person aging out, graduating and going to college, a mentor being unresponsive, that's very common. School becoming too much, needing a breather, disciplinary issues, health, job change, death, lack of commitment, lack of time, scheduling and too busy. I see a lot of themes here. Mismatching, yep, that happens. Yeah, also a lot of check marks. I think those are +1s. Nice, y'all. A young person not having full buy-in, if that happens to you. Unresponsiveness, transitions to a new job. Alrighty. I'll continue putting those in. We're going to come back together. All right. Can y'all see my screen okay? Perfect. All right. So we just talked a little bit about why matches end. Were there any that maybe surprised you, or anything that you're noticing about the anticipated versus unanticipated ones? Or any themes you're seeing? I saw a lot of opportunity. It seemed to me, some of those seemed like there wouldn't be opportunity for closure, right? Unexpected moves, unexpected transitions. I think I saw like a family loss in there. Those seem like there would be literally no closure. Should be really hard. Any other themes y'all are seeing? The idea of buy-in and commitment. People need to be invested in the experience and the work. That's really good, Lauren. Life happens to both mentors and mentees. Things happen. The most anticipated seems like aging out of natural conclusion. Thank y'all in the chat. I just saw these. Anticipated endings seem to have more to do with young people. Yep, that's a good point, Hannah. Awesome. So let's talk through why some matches do end. So pulling in some more research, a qualitative study of early ending matches, kind of like what we talked about before, points to factors that contribute to premature endings. The study was an analysis of some in-depth interviews with 31 adults and 31 youth participants in 2 community-based mentoring programs. So here are some of what came out through that, which actually aligns pretty well with what y'all were saying, right? Lack of motivation, unfulfilled expectations on the mentors part, deficiencies in relational skills and cultural competency, family interference, as well as inadequate agency support. So Spencer, who is the researcher here, suggests that the key to functional closure in the context of the mentoring relationship lies with an appropriately timed closure ritual that transitions the relationship status, which we've already talked about, right? How do we make sure that transitions feel natural and that there is something to celebrate that transition? So research on the closure process shows that it can be helpful to preserve the benefits of the mentoring experience when it prepares young people for the change level of support and is both expected and structured. So when it's anticipated and is an expected closure and a structured closure, that is ideal. We also know that there are non-ideal circumstances, a lot of which y'all were putting on that Jamboard. And even under those unexpected and non-ideal circumstances, a closure process can remain functional, right? So how do we make sure that we're still doing that, especially if it allows a young person the opportunity to reflect on their experience and their feelings associated with their relationship's end or transition. So in a relationship match ending, we want to aim for clear program goal expectations around relationship commitment. We want to make sure we're being very clear early on about the duration and frequency so folks know what to expect and know when that relationship match might end. We want to make sure and aim for regular communication with participants, checking in with individuals to learn if and when goals are reached. So making sure we're able to know what's going on and then celebrate that. So when a goal is reached, making sure we're celebrating those achievements, and if desired, making sure we're establishing new goals if that's what a young person wants. And we want to avoid in programs any early terminations, any unmet program expectations, and also kind of the flip of that, we want to avoid letting matches carry on until they just drift apart, right? So being matched too long is also a thing. So we know that healthy closure is super important. We've kind of already touched on this, but as we know, a third or even up to a half of matches end prematurely. That's a lot. And y'all are probably seeing that in your own program. And what we've talked about is how they end matters. We want to make sure that those premature endings have an opportunity to end in a meaningful way and have a way to plan and celebrate those endings. And most of us are just pretty good at saying goodbye, or pretty bad at saying goodbye. I don't think it's something that any of us are particularly thrilled to do, right? A lot of us at the beginning in that icebreaker talked about endings and how those can be really hard and how relationship endings, a lot of us are still grieving them. So in the same way, programs need to make sure that we're helping mentors and young people end relationships well. That's not a natural skill a lot of us have. So making sure, again, planning for the premature closures and the expected closures and the unexpected closures is a way to support mentors and young people to end relationships in a way that reduces harm. As we've talked about, premature closure or closure in general can be harmful if not done well. So making sure we are finding ways to do that in a way that is positive for all folks involved. And as we've talked about, the timing of closure is super important. So these are a few examples of what closure might look like. We have an ending timeline. So if it ends early versus ends on time or overdue ending. We have the functionality if it ends in a functional way or a dysfunctional way. And ideally, looking at this image, we would want to have a closure that has a well-timed ending. So it's ending when expected and on time and has a functional closure, right? And that might look like it would be expected and structured, and young people and mentors would feel satisfaction and admiration at their relationship. If we don't meet those ideal timelines, if we have an early ending that is maybe dysfunctional or an overdue ending that might be functional or dysfunctional or whatever else in between there, we want to make sure that we have a plan for how to reduce harm in those spaces so we can avoid those feelings of sadness and frustration and abandonment and confusion and resentment that are all listed there. So how do we plan for that? I know we just did our Jamboard. I want us to kind of think back to that. Can you, in the chat, drop the number 1 for me if you believe that you currently have adequate written policies and procedures to address all possible closure scenarios? Drop a 1 in the chat for me if you believe you have adequate policies and procedures to address all possible closure scenarios. This is not a trick question. All right. That might be a no, not anyone has all of them, and that's okay. That's why we're here. So kind of a flip of that, for the ones that you do have policies and procedures for, do you inform participants of those closure policies and procedures throughout the match? You can drop a 2 in there for me if you have a way to inform participants of those policies and procedures throughout the match. Okay, got a few of those. Awesome, awesome. All right, so we might not have all closure scenarios covered, but we do have a way to share some of those out. Awesome. That's really good to know. Thank y'all. Perfect. All right. So keeping that in mind, to help structure closure, we want to make sure we have clear and well-documented procedures for all types of closure. Having those procedures, policies and procedures is important for all types of closure. And so for anticipated closure, so those are the ones that you're expecting, maybe it's just the natural ending of your program. Anticipated closure is about setting up a structured process to say goodbye. Some of y'all were putting that in the chat. earlier about doing those graduations, those ice cream parties, the photo shoots, things like that. So having a structured way and a structured moment of a goodbye and closure, right? And unanticipated closure, something we want to do here. It's about setting up a structured process to support that transition, even if it's an unanticipated closure. So sticking to the process for anticipated closures as much as possible. So if you're able to recreate any of that, or if you're not able to, making sure you're strategizing alternatives where necessary. Another researcher that I wanted to chat about is Dr. Karcher. They recommend that the termination process should include a few different things, which is one, identifying the reason for termination or closure. So making sure that you're on the same page as to why this is closing. Learning about the match. So making sure that you're learning how the participants felt, what did work, what did not work, and planning those next steps. So even in those unanticipated closures, I think I remember one of y'all was sharing that there was an unanticipated move and you last minute had to try to figure out how to support that person through that move in that when you were typing that in. That's a great example of that. You met and you planned those next steps and tried to have a structured process for how to support them in that unanticipated transition. So programs should have a written public statement that they can provide to parents or guardians, as well as mentors and mentees, that outlines a term of match closure. So that could be in your intake documents, that could be in your expectations, whatever that might look like, but you want to make sure that you have an opportunity to share that in a way that you can provide to parents and guardians that outlines those terms of match closure and the policies for mentor-mentee contact after a relationship ends. That should also include contact using digital media, social media, what is or isn't allowed. And just so we're setting those expectations early on, so that doesn't get confusing, especially with those unanticipated and premature closures. So as we're talking about communicating about it, to make sure we're helping closure be expected, we want to communicate those closure policies and procedures throughout the life cycle of the mentoring relationship with all members of the match. So with young people, with mentors, with family members. And as we know, closure is a natural and expected outcome of the mentoring relationship. That's not a surprise. We know it's going to end. It's not going to last their entire lives, right? But how do we make sure we're describing that as a natural and expected outcome at the beginning, at the middle, and at the end of that relationship, so that the young person knows it's coming and knows it's natural and knows how to expect that? So here are some examples of like when you can communicate about it, but in the chat or unmute, do y'all have any best practices for when you communicate closure in your program? So when you're laying out those expectations for young people about when closure is happening? So how do you communicate closure in your program? Again, y'all can come off mute or put it in the chat, whatever works best for you.
Okay, I can say I was going to type it out, but I'd rather just talk.
Sounds good.
As a supervisor, I don't directly talk to the children myself because I don't really have direct interaction with them. I see them during our events that we have for CASA, but we do, like, I do advise like my volunteers, the CASAs, to talk to the children and also plan like an exiting event with them to kind of like explain their role from advocacy to now I'm moving more so into a mentoring role for you, even though they do have a dual role of advocacy and mentoring. But just to close it out, like at this point, I will no longer be your advocate for court, but we can still communicate. It just won't be on the same level, or we can just say our goodbyes and wish you well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you're laying out expectations at the beginning and then you're reiterating those during that match closure, making sure that they understand what's coming. That's really good, Janae. Also, thank you for talking, because right now I'm just hearing a lot of myself. So I appreciate hearing other voices. Awesome. I see some in the chat. Connecting with case manager that works with the young person to support me in sharing the news and updates. So keeping another trusted adult in the loop. Training 3 times in training over 8 days. So making sure that it is repeated throughout training. That's good. All participants are provided with a clear start and end dates. If there is an unanticipated closure, we have a meeting with the student and their family. That's really great, Anna. Making sure that they know from the jump, this is when it's ending. And if it happens before, then making sure that there's a way to get that closure. We indicate what the mission is and the end goal of the program. Perfect. Oh, that's really cool, Juanita. Thank you for sharing that. BJ said they let them know upfront when their tentative completion date is, and they let them know 1 month ahead of time, and again on a weekly basis, so that the young people can develop a plan for after they finish the program. Standard length. And then you share that in multiple different spaces, perfect, and throughout the match. Thank you, Tyshel. So for your clients, doing a warm transfer to another MOED agency, that's awesome. So making sure that there's the transition already built in. That's great. All right, thank y'all for sharing that. Thank you for sharing what closure looks like in your programs. So as we think about what those closure activities might look like, the purpose of closure activities is to have a structured way to learn about the match, to support members and their relationship transition, and to provide them with a healthy way to say goodbye. So in our closure activities and our final closure activities, those graduations, those ice cream parties, those meetings, your 3 goals should be to learn about the match, to make plans for the future, whether that's just helping them goal set or making sure that they feel supported in their relationship transition, and helping them say goodbye. Those are the 3 final closure activity goals. I would say that this is a good way to sum up most of this training. If you're looking for a way to do closure in a healthy way, these are the 3 big pieces you're looking for. And some recommendations from our Elements of Effective Practice. Benchmark 6.8 actually lays out some of those. So regardless of the reason for closure, mentoring programs should have discussion with mentors, mentees, and parents or guardians regarding the following. So regarding the feelings about closure, the reasons for closure, the positive experiences in the mentoring relationship. So having a time to be able to celebrate that. A procedure for the final meeting, whether that be like an exit interview or something. Program rules for post-closure contact. So we talked about that, making sure that young people, parents, and mentees and mentors all feel really solid and they understand what the processes are for that. A plan for the last match meeting, and a plan for rematching if that's relevant. So if a young person might need to be rematched, what does that look like and how do you cover that in that meeting? So this is a really good kind of checklist to make sure that you're having these discussions between mentors, mentees, and parents, that everyone feels like they have the answers to these questions and know what's going on, especially in the context of closure. So here are also some best practices for closure activities. Excuse me. You want to conduct a closure meeting. So we know that closure meetings can help program staff communicate important policies for closure, including continued contact, consideration around rematching, and things like that. A signed closure agreement and continued contact form is also important to help participants just understand the change in the relationship, right? Like we're going from maybe talking multiple times a week or every day to not talking much at all, if at all. So that should clearly articulate any program liability regarding any ongoing match interactions. And in addition to the closure meeting, exit interviews could be really helpful. They can help participants further articulate their feelings and identify any program improvements. So really also allowing a feedback loop there for how a participant might have felt during that time with the program. So, You want to conduct a closure meeting, which might look like any of those things we just laid out. You want to document that match closure. So thinking about different ways to document that. I am curious, are there any ways that y'all document those closures? That could look like digital files, a database, paper files, how, or if you do y'all document match closure? And if so, how do you do that?
I'll speak again. We put the definitely have to have the court document uploaded into our system. We use Optima, and also, you know, the volunteer also has to put, you know, make sure that their notes are in there, put your final notes in. I put a note in as well stating how it ended, and then we go ahead and close the case out. So we
Awesome.
have to make
Okay.
sure that all things are up to date.
Yeah, that's really helpful to know. Okay. So, well, yeah, making sure that all the case notes are up to date, making sure that everything's in there to complete that closure. I see a lot of similar things in the chat, databases, completing a packet and uploading that. Hannah, is that like a feedback packet, or just like, what does that look like for y'all?
It has a lot of different things. It has a little reflection activity for them to do. It also has how their relationship will look in the future, kind of a little bit of everything that you've touched on today, all in that packet, if that makes sense.
It does. That's really cool. BJ said they document it in their daily logs. Jeffrey uses case notes, a database, and they send letters to both the mentor and mentee. That's also recorded in the database. Abigail, what does that letter look like? Is it just like laying out like expectations moving forward, or is it like a thank you for doing this, congrats?
It depends on the situation. We sometimes, depending on the circumstance, sometimes it's a graduation, the match was successful, they've just moved on to a new phase of life. So it's just like, congratulations, we hope you stay in touch, here's that information. And then referring them to other resources as well to do that warm handoff. But if it's unexpected, it kind of lays that out too, of what the reasonings might have been and like what the procedure might be going forward if they want to be rematched or anything.
Okay, that's awesome. So it sounds like it's really tailored to each relationship match. That's beautiful. Awesome. And then Julie, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, said that among what's mentioned, the mentor and mentee each have a photograph framed where they reflect on their relationship. That is really sweet and a really great way to celebrate that relationship. Awesome. Thank y'all for sharing those, and hopefully it's helping other folks get some ideas too. So different ways to document match closure. Thank y'all for engaging with me on that. And also, oh, we have some more. Reflections unit where e-mentors and students share their gratitude about the e-mentoring experience. It's documented in platforms set up by classrooms, and we send certificates. Yes, we love certificates. We love ways to, something tangible to say like, I did this is huge. So documenting that sounds like y'all are doing great and have some great ideas and examples there. And finally, that another best practice for those closure activities is facilitating final match meeting, right? So having mentors and mentees having a special final meeting where they're able to reflect kind of what y'all were just talking about, able to reflect, discuss those memories and fun times and celebrate together. It's also recommended that programs organize some sort of final celebration activity, which it sounds like a lot of you are already doing, to kind of mark that transition in the relationship, such as a graduation night, which I saw a lot of y'all do, or that pizza party or the ice cream party, or just some way to be able to say like, you did this and we're celebrating you for doing this. So in those handouts we shared at the beginning, Renee, if you're able to drop that PDF again, in those handouts, that also includes examples of a closure interview form, this termination agreements, a continued contract form, and some sample mentor and mentee closure reflection questions. So just want to make sure y'all had that in case it's helpful to you. In that little workbook, we also just have those standards that we've been going over. But I think that if y'all are looking to just have some examples, especially all of y'all had so many great ideas, there are a few resources in there that might be helpful. All right, so let's talk about celebrating the relationship. So in your workbook, that again, We will re-up in the chat, which, oh, thank you, Renee, you already put that in there. You'll find a list of different celebration ideas. We already also named some, but do you have any favorite celebration ideas? Maybe even some you've heard today or on that list. And do you have any other ideas for final activities to help celebrate the relationship? All right, so taking young people out for dinner, that's sweet. Cultural experiences. Oh, Juanita, that's so cool. A poetry night where parents get to share the experience with their families and peers. We serve food and provide childcare. That's awesome. Gift cards to a restaurant selected by the match. Oh, that's sweet. So they get to go out together. Personalized celebrations with a photo booth. Danielle, were you the one who also said like a photo shoot and like a field trip or something?
No, I actually didn't say that and I must have missed it, but
Okay, that sounded
same
awesome.
sentiment.
Cool. Whoever said that, I'm so intrigued and I want to learn more. Inviting mentees' siblings and thanking them as well. That's really sweet. Storytelling. Nice. A weekend family retreat. Oh, that's really sweet. That's a really big way to end things. Yeah. Family restorative circles to share the experience and providing dinner. For those of you that do graduations, what do those look like for you? Do you have certificates? Do you have folks like walk across anything? Walk me through that. I'd love to learn more about that. Video clips to show at the graduation. Oh, that's really sweet. Nice. And maybe if there's something you don't do, but you're like, oh, this is a really cool idea that I want to try, feel free to drop those in there too. Awesome. As y'all keep going, we will keep it moving. So we talked about what does celebrating the relationship look like, right? Y'all had a lot of great ideas there, as well as some more information in those handouts. But something we haven't touched on much is rematching, right? So what does it look like if a young person needs to be rematched? So a process for rematching is another important element of managing healthy closure, because rematching means it's closing for that specific relationship, right? So some evidence suggests that there may be some negative outcomes for mentees who experience premature closure and have been rematched. So their relationship ended with a specific mentor and they're being rematched with a different mentor. And some research suggests that that might actually not be great. So a recent study that was co-authored by Jean Rose indicated that programs need to carefully consider rematching a young person whose mentor terminated the relationship early. It states that mentees whose initial mentoring relationship ended prematurely and who were then rematched with a different mentor during the same school year showed poor academic performance than having been mentored, than they experienced before being mentored. So as we know, young people should only be rematched if A, they want to be rematched. We don't want to force a young person into a relationship, so they should only be rematched if they want to be rematched. B, and I'm doing 1, 2, so that's kind of funny. So I'll say 2. If you have a good fit in a mentor, so if there is a mentor that is a natural good fit for that mentee, so program practitioners should have and follow a documented process for that rematching that considers the unique circumstances of each mentoring relationship and also upon exiting a formal mentoring relationship, agency staff, so all of us should be able to help guide mentees to identify potential positive adults that might be natural mentors. So if rematching isn't appropriate in that relationship setting or in that program setting, how can we make sure that they're able to still have an informal mentor and a positive adult in their life? So what's on the screen right now are some guiding questions you'll want to reflect on to see if rematching is the best fit for a mentee. So some questions to consider when rematching are, what are the reasons that the relationship ended? Does the young person require a mentor with specific skills or experience? Are youth and parents receptive to your program and interested in rematching? Like, do young people and parents even want that? And is the youth experiencing significant environmental and individual or behavioral issues? I see some stuff in the chat. Good to see you, Jessica. Yeah, BJ, are you referring specifically to rematching?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm saying there might not even be mentors for them to be rematched with.
Yes, and actually, we do have, or we have instances where maybe the mentor, well, especially when you're short staffed, maybe we had a part-time mentor who was there for their school term. So they may have been there for maybe like 6 months or a year, but the youth came in towards the end. And so, it takes a while for them to get used to the mentor and start opening up. And then once the mentor leaves, and then whoever comes aboard, they have that youth. And so now it's almost like starting all over again, trying to build up a new relationship with them. So even though the best thing is not to end the relationship, sometimes we just don't have a choice. But
Well, I think that's a great example, BJ, and kind of what we were just talking about in that we know that if, like, I'm assuming, and BJ, please excuse me if I'm making an incorrect assumption, but when you're saying, hey, this relationship match is ending because of, it's that mentor's natural time to leave, but maybe their mentee came in at a different time. And if you're short staffed, I'm assuming that the next mentor that's joining them, it's not necessarily, it's not a planned match. It's not something that like you're like, this mentor is the best match for this person, but rather this is the person that's replacing the person before. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's correct. That's actually what it is, because when we have short staff, and that may only be one person in that region, and then we may go like a month or two, sometimes more, until we can get more people in that region. And then once somebody is hired for that region, and then they're filling over, going in the field, filling over for the person that left because they're no longer with the organization, then it's almost like they're starting over again with the youth.
Yeah,
which is kind of hard. Because some youth, it may have taken 2 weeks for them to get used to their first mentor. And then now they're opening up, they're talking, they're, doing everything. And then, we got somebody else. They're like, hold up. Youth like to test people. They're kids. That's just what they do. And so, they test this next one for a little bit and like, I don't think I like this one as much as the other one.
Yeah, well, I think it's also that what we talked about before, that transition of like even having that relationship end, that is in itself like a hard situation, right? We saw that the impact of relationships ending early, of mentoring relationships ending early, that caused a lot of confusion for young people and grief and sadness, and it has a lot of those frustrating feelings. And then to have a new mentor come in, especially if it's not done in an intentional way, and kind of considering some of these questions that are on the screen, it could be a negative experience for a mentee. Yeah, that's a really good point. And just some good things to consider as y'all are ensuring, even within short staffing, ensuring that mentees have mentors, but how are we doing that in a way that reduces harm, right? That ensures that young people are not being harmed, and that we're avoiding those negative outcomes for young people.
I just wish we had a big pool of people that we can just get from. I could pick this one mentor for this kid. They can do the whole program with that person. Nothing will happen. No setbacks, no challenges. In a
Yes,
perfect
but
world.
in a perfect world, life happens. And we know that it is not realistic, or it's not realistic for us to have 100% matches that are perfect and last for the entire batch and never have a rematch and never have a premature closing, right? So how do we make sure we're planning for that? That's a really good point, BJ. And Tracy in the chat, I see you have that challenge as well, working with corporate sponsors and the new e-mentor and the teacher to set up the match for success. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that, BJ. All right, team. So we are going to reflect. We got through a lot of content. We're going to hang out with each other and do a little activity. So of those listed on the screen, you should see a few different listed areas that you could improve upon. There might be others. So of those listed areas that you could improve upon, pick one. You can put it in the chat, keep it in your head. We are going to open up some breakout groups based on these 4 areas. You're going to choose to join the group. So it's going to pop up on your screen. You should be able to choose to join the group. I think, Renee, if I'm explaining that wrong, please correct me.
It'll do it automatically. It'll move you to a group.
Okay, got it. You're going to join the group that aligns with your improvement topic, and you're going to problem solve together. So problem solve on those program improvement ideas. We're going to be in there for about 5 to 7 minutes. And then I want y'all to walk away with one thing that you can plan to work on after the session. So one thing you can actively work on to plan on after the session. We'll put this in the chat, and we will open up some breakout rooms, and we'll come back together and do a little debrief. All right, sound good? Cool. All right, here we go. And Renee, is it more helpful for folks to put in the chat those responses for you to move people?
No, I got it. You will choose. So I will let you know in 1 second it is going to pop up. 1 second.
Perfect.
Let me just
And
check
if you
how
don't
long, Kiana,
choose,
so I can set a time limit.
let's do 7 minutes.
Okay. So they will close automatically after 7 minutes, and then you'll have a minute to wrap up any conversations after that 7 minutes.
Perfect,
So
thank you.
you can choose your room, and it should pop up on your screen now.
Awesome, thank you. Gonna give folks a few more seconds as folks are coming back from breakout rooms. All right, we should all be back. Welcome back, team. All right, so let's chat about that. So planning for closure group. Did y'all have any key highlights or insights from your conversation in that group? Maybe any themes y'all talked about for your one takeaway? Planning for closure.
I got a lot.
I was in the, I'm sorry, go ahead, Juanita,
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you share. Go ahead.
I was in the, thank you, Juanita. I was in the group of planning for closure. And as I shared with the other participants in that room, I'm an in-school youth career coach. This is the first year that we're actually putting this program out to students grades 6 through 10, getting them college and career ready. So my concern was if at some point, we feel that we're not reaching a particular student, and they're not grasping this program, what do we do? How do we go about making sure that they're engaged? And someone was sharing some really good pointers out. They indicated in the end of the year survey for the students to say, okay, what worked for me? What what interests me the most? What did I find most intriguing about it? What benefit did I gain so far? So, and then what do I look forward to in the future, maybe by my 10th grade year or by the time I graduate from high school? So yeah, goal setting. And I think that is something that we're going to be implementing in the near future, because that's very important for our students.
That's awesome. I'm glad you had a direct takeaway from that. Anyone else from the first group planning for closure that wants to share out anything they took away? Juanita, were your takeaways similar? Did you have something different you wanted to share?
I did because, as I stated earlier, my situation is a little different. We mentor adults and that basically we mentor families. And one of the anxieties that I think I have and some of my volunteer staff has is we just have not been successful in letting go. Even though we've seen a lot of improvement on where our parents want to go and the type of parents they want to be, the relationships have become very familiar. And so we have a hard time saying, okay, fly, little birdie, you can go now, and we'll keep in touch. And so that's been a challenge. And I got some really great feedback. And so I'm just going to absorb it all and see if we can make some of it work.
Awesome. I'm glad that was helpful. All right, group 2, implementing closure procedures. Anything for y'all? Anything that stood out to y'all?
Yes, I'm LaWanda, and I work with That Girl Connections, and I work with a partnership of a residential girls' home, ages 13 to 18 plus. And so I found the most interesting thing is the leading and the directing of staff, and them understanding the closure procedures and how important it is to the mentee, the mentor, and the staff to follow those procedures for exiting and transitioning the mentorship. Right now, I am considered the mentor in the program with assistance from staff. And I don't think I'm really viewing a lot of staff commitment to the closure process because a lot of it is unexpected. The behavior occurs, the participant has to go to a more restrictive, placement, and it's kind of really abrupt. So one day you see them, a couple of days later, they've had this type of behavior, and then maybe a week so after that, they're gone. And we don't have photos of the girls because of privacy in the house. The staff does not take photos with the mentees, and so there really is no exiting of the mentorship program. We do the graduation and the birthday part. And during the birthday, they all receive a customized candy dish in the colors that they love the best with the candy they love the best. But for graduation, we'll have our first graduate that just turned 18 in the fall. And the program for the residential girls program outside of That Girl Connection, they did not prepare her to understand that she was going to a adult home, adult home placement. She has been putting in applications for college this whole time. She's gotten acceptance from 3. And now they're telling her that she's not capable to be on a campus by herself and be able to function directly. I don't approve of that. I think colleges now have sufficient resources for types of 18-year-olds coming in with IEPs and things like that. So I'm working on that and kind of getting them to redirect their determination on that. But yeah, I think that they don't have a closure procedure in place. And I would like to, that's why I'm participating today, to help implement that. So
Yeah.
this whole webinar has been so engaging and so resourceful for that particular, thing that I wanted to implement in their residential girls class. So I want to, just thank everyone who participated today. Just to see as many faces as I saw today was an encouragement to know that it's happening. So yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for sharing. I'm glad this has been helpful. But also, a few folks in the chat are wondering, what was the name of your program again?
It's the Southern Maryland Youth, Inc., and it's a residential girls and boys home. And it's located in Faulkner, Maryland, almost to the Potomac Bridge.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Luanda. And yeah, I'm hoping maybe you have some takeaways that you can bring back, especially regarding those closure procedures. Also, feel free to email us, and we'd love to be a resource as well.
Certainly. I already printed the PFD, so.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, what about those folks from the post-closure considerations? Anything, any highlights for y'all? Post-closure considerations, anyone from that group?
Yeah, I think we talked about both how programs were implementing kind of surveys and questionnaires years afterwards in some cases, and at other programs wanting to implement, having some sort of reflection or resource to get feedback so that they can implement better. And I apologize here, Paul mentioned that within his program, it really is based on like a narrative arc. And so they kind of have a closure already implemented within the course of the program, which is a really wonderful way of thinking about it.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Rebecca. All right. And we can go ahead and do our, or Paul, did you have anything to share? I just saw you come off camera.
Oh yeah, no, thank you for that. No, it's just I run an numerical program here in Montgomery County called Project Change, and our specialty is story and using story as a principle of design. And I was just quoting people like Daniel Kahneman, whose book is called Thinking Fast and Slow, and he kind of pinpoints the idea that the closure, the ending, is how the memory takes up the experience and makes meaning out of it. So that in a sense, how it ends is what it is in terms of the way the memory makes meaning out of the experience. So for us, it's like the closure or the ending is prime real estate, and that we spend a lot of time on it, because even if a member in our service years had an up and down year, we know that the memory is made in that closure, and we want to send them off remembering their experience as their achievement, as the way they grew, as the way they struggled with courage and resilience. So in other words, there's a sort of always a retrospective element built into the closure, so that, like, look at you when you first came here, now look at you, remember, look what you had to struggle with, remember, we want the gift of them leaving us feeling 10 foot taller and more powerful, more sense of their self. I think for us this is sort of we really want to immerse him in that kind of validation as a critical part of closure, because it's what the memory does to the experience, which is the lasting value of it, which is always fascinating for us.
Yeah, Paul, that's a really good point. I really liked your, oh, why did I just forget it? How it ends is what it is. That really resonated with me. And a few people in the chat are asking, what was the name of the book?
It's called Thinking Fast and Slow he's a Nobel Prize winner for behavior economics. His name is Daniel Kahneman, Kahneman. He's an Israeli economist who teaches either at Princeton or Harvard, I'm not sure. Thinking Fast and Slow. It came out quite a few years ago. It's a bit of a read, in a sense, but it just says, we experience things and then we remember things, and they're two different parts of the brain.
That's really cool, Paul. Thank you for sharing that resource. That's awesome and very true. And even as you were talking, it reminds me of like I've had positions where I had a anticlimactic ending, right? Like it was maybe planned, but then something didn't happen to remember it. And then that's really what sticks, right? It's like, oh, I guess I wasn't really appreciated, or that wasn't really meaningful. And so I think kind of translating that to what that looks like for young people, making sure we're doing those celebrations, that we're making sure that they're able to, again, have those important memories and time to reflect is really important. Thank you again.
Yeah, I mean, to us, it's the redeemable moment, I mean, I also teach like DC tour guides, and I always tell them, if you've got a busload of rowdy teenagers who bored stiff because they're really not engaged in what you're trying to present on the tour of Washington, and I always say, look, you can still rescue that in the last 5 minutes. Like crack a joke, be funny, they'll remember that. They won't remember that you got angry at them in the middle, or you were just, the ending is so precious real estate. And so therefore it's kind of, don't waste it. It's the redeemable moment, especially if we're working with a population of people who are struggling. That closure piece, that mentoring piece, it's the redeemable moment.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul. All right, friends. So as we're wrapping up, I know I've seen a few of you having to hop off to other meetings. We are essentially done here. Just a quick share out in your reflection. Was just hoping that we could share a rosebud and thorn, something that resonated with you, and this will be in the chat. Something that resonated with you. A bud would be a new idea or concept you hope to develop, and a thorn would be one thing that was challenging that you would like to learn more about. As y'all are thinking through those, as I mentioned in the handbook, please keep those, download those. We will also include that in our follow-up email. We'll also include the elements, the downloadable version of the Elements for Effective Practice. You're welcome to check out the references section of that, which has a bunch more for further reading. And as you're exiting today, you will be prompted to do a session evaluation. We would love to hear your feedback. Feedback is a gift, so please complete that. But feel free to put your reflections in the chat. But thank you again for joining us today. We'd love to see you at some of our other trainings that we have coming up, including we have a trauma-informed youth development and mentoring training Wednesday, April 24th from 10 to 12. You can scan that QR code to register. You can also copy that bit.ly code right there. We'll also include that in our follow-up email. And also, if you are looking for a certificate of completion, you can request a certificate of completion for any of our trainings that you attend. You can send over those certificate requests to the emails listed there. We would love to make sure, if that is important for you for PD, that you have that, and we'd love to do that. But thank you again, y'all. Thank y'all for hanging out with me today. If y'all have any questions, let me know. I would love to be a resource to y'all. I'll drop my name and email in the chat, and we'll also send a follow-up email with that information. But I'll hang on for any folks who might have questions. But if y'all need anything, keep me in the loop. I'm here. Thank y'all again.